Thanks, gentlemen, for joining us. Steve, first wanted to address something. A couple publications have picked up a tidbit in my story to both of you about how you juggle your career at HGGC and ESPN. I just wanted to give you a chance to clarify how you do that.
Well, sure, Alex. I think a lot of people, you leave the game. I remember one of the things in the article was about Roger Staubach said to me, when you finish playing, run. And it really isn't to run away from the game. It's really to not dwell on it and have a plan. And one of the reasons why we sat down for the article was to talk about mentorship and how I can get players today to be thinking about their futures, how to get, to make sure that they're prepared with their education and other ways to conspire them, so that, because no matter what, I played 17 years and still needed another career, and I built an expertise over the last almost 20 years in private equity. But it's certainly, I think a little disservice in the article about my passion and expertise at ESPN and for football. I mean, the truth is, I spend an inordinate amount of time in the fall preparing for my job. The ESPN gratefully put a camera into my office, so for an hour and a half on Wednesdays, I talk to PTI and go around the league and all the issues in Sports Center. And Thursday morning, early morning, we have our production meeting for the Monday show with our team of Trent and Charles and Randy and Susie, and then Monday, obviously, on the field, pre-production meetings for, and so there's for me, and then during the game. I mean, if there's any interaction with anybody away from football, it's at the, we have a 2-hour show before the game. There's breaks in there where we can say hi to people and on the field, and then during the game, the first quarter, we spend watching the game from the field, get a feel for it. Second and third quarters, obviously in the bus or in a suite, and then in the fourth quarter back on the field. So I think more than anything, there's a little bit of insecurity, I think, for players who leave the game and want to do something else, that want to create a new profession, a new expertise. And I've done that for almost 20 years. But then my other expertise, I don't want to do a disservice, and my family at ESPN, who, Alex, be honest with you, I've been with ESPN longer than I was with the 49ers. And so there's so many rich relationships there. And so, and I feel like I've been doing it for 15 years. In fact, I think it's probably, for me, maybe my best year this year, including the post-game of the Super Bowl. So I think more than anything in the article, certainly don't misconstrue my passion and focus for doing a great job. I feel like there's not in conflict the two jobs and at all, and I'm really lucky to have them both. So
and I think anyone who's listened to you knows certainly how excellent you are at football commentating. And I will say that the point of bringing that out in the story is to simply alert people to the fact that you do have two things going on at once, which I think a lot of people don't realize, and that's sort of getting into your HGGC. So it's a good segue. Tell us how you learned about the private equity industry. And you mentioned you've been doing this actually longer than you've been playing professional football. Yeah,
so luckily I made good friends with Warren Hellman and Larry Sonsini. I was on a board at Power Bar back when I was playing, and got introduced to the business world. And then Rich Lawson on my left here was the CEO of a business that I started while I was finishing playing. And so that's how we got connected. And then Bob Gay, a good friend of mine who was with Bain Capital for years when I was an investor in those funds, gave me an opportunity to transition from football into private equity and direct investing in 2001 with Sorensen Capital, where Rich and I were founding members there. And so that's how I kind of made my transition. A lot of it was from Silicon Valley relationships that I built while we were playing. Harris Barton, Brent Jones, Ronnie Lott. A lot of us were sitting around the locker room and we think about how can we get involved in this explosion of Silicon Valley around our Santa Clara practice facility? How can we take advantage and learn? And we got great relationships in the venture capital world, and that's kind of how there's a natural, it seems odd when people meet me and say, how in the world did you get started in private equity? But there was a natural way being in Santa Clara, and I think around Silicon Valley during the late 90s.
Rich, tell us a little bit about HGGC's strategy, because you guys have an investing philosophy that is pretty unusual these days in private equity.
Well, it is, Alex, and only in this global economy, right? In that 17 short years that Steve had mentioned, we've been able to grow HGGC to a little over $4 billion of capital under management. We have over 46,000 employees involved in our portfolio of companies. And we continue to do what we call middle market private equity controlled deals. There's a tremendous opportunity today to go back to basics and what private equity used to be in the 90s in terms of the average size. And we've had a great run. It's been a tremendous opportunity, and it's been a great time to be able to work with Steve along the way over now nearly 2 decades, Alex.
You can read more about HGGC in this week's Business Week, as I mentioned. Steve, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you a football question or two. You did publish a book recently, your autobiography, My Life Behind the Spiral. And the first quote on the back of this book is from Tom Brady. So I have to ask you, is Tom Brady the greatest quarterback of all time now?
Sure feels like it with 5 Super Bowls. I mean, it's amazing. I was sitting on the field. I think, as I mentioned, I did post-game of the Super Bowl, and we were watching it that last couple of drives from the field, and you think to yourself the enormity of the moment, the comeback, the greatest comeback in the history of the Super Bowl, and then also what Tom has done over and over again. And in the postgame, I referred to him as relentlessly excellent, and that really came through as he finished the game. It almost felt inevitable when he got those opportunities towards the end of the game, and I don't know that anyone's been able to do that over 5 Super Bowls. And so obviously with Joe Montana, with all the great players, I'm not great at picking the greatest of all time because I think each generation builds on the next, is informed by the previous. And so for me, who was the greatest of their generation? And Tom Brady certainly is.